honestly, that's so ridiculous. I have no idea. Sometimes I have too much time on my hand. Absolutely love technology. Truthfully, though, that saying has never been my favorite saying. You know, marry the house, date the rate. Because here's what I've learned in 20 years of being a mortgage broker or being in the business. I've been a mortgage broker for 20 years. Is that, we're one decision away from changing the course of where we're currently at. Great example was right before COVID when rates jumped into the drop down to the 2% range. We were expecting rates to continue to rise, to about where they're at today. Then one thing happened, everything changed. And we don't want to make decisions based off of, well, let's just marry the house and date the rate. Then we'll refinance, save money, and make it more affordable. If it's not affordable today, perhaps you should reconsider buying a home. But if it is affordable and rates do go down like they are starting to go down, then great. It's like dessert. This is where we start, really saving money. So the one thing about refinancing is it's not a guessing game. There's not a rule that fits all people. It's not like, hey, wait 1%, wait 0.5%. Because here's the thing. If you have a $100,000 loan amount and interest rates drop 1%, it is 100% not worth refinancing, in my opinion. I can prove it to you with numbers. However, if you have a $2 million loan, 0.25% in rate reduction can really save you tons of money, which, by the way, these are the things that we're going to talk about over the next few minutes on how to gauge whether or not refinancing is right for you. Now, here's my best advice I can give anybody, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead here, but I'm going to give it to you right away, is, of course, we all want the lowest interest rate. That's just human nature. So when I ask what rate you want, well, the lowest. But we don't know when the bottom is. And so what we've come up with this term, it's called a target rate. Now, what a target rate is a rate where if you missed it, if rates went back up, you would totally regret it. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, I can lower your rate today, maybe save you about $100 a month. And you're like, I'll risk it. Let's see if the rates go lower. And if you lost out, it'd be like, oh, well. However, if we get to the point where it's saving you $500 and you want more, then you lose it, that's something you could potentially regret. So we want to make sure that you have a target rate. So at any time throughout this little presentation, there's a QR code. It's somewhere here. It's in my top right corner. That goes to my calendar. We can do what's called a hopes and dreams. I'm not going to pull credit. We're not going to do anything crazy like that. We're just going to get a plan in place for you. Figure out what your target rate is. It's really simple to do. It won't take that much time at all. And I would love to help you, and I would love to help you save money. So, excuse me, let's get with it here. Let's get to it. Let's talk about when the right time to refinance is. So it looks like I'm going to have to go in and out here. So there's really three things that my goal today is to really hopefully that I impress upon you. Number one is that there's a way to stop guessing, right? You have to look at the real numbers. And it's not necessarily a monthly savings, right? Your next loan has to match your short-term and long-term goals. For example, if you're going to sell your house in a year, does it make sense to refinance? Well, I don't know. It depends on some of the things that we're going to talk about here. Do you, at the end of the day, make more money and put it in your pocket by refinancing today if you're going to sell in a year? Or would it be better off not to refinance? So there's things that you can do. So you're going to stop guessing. We're going to put help you with the real numbers. We're going to make sure that before you go into a refinance, you really are going to align your goals or really think about what your short-term, long-term goals are with the property. We have a client right now that he wants to buy a house in 6 months. And so what we're doing is we're refinancing today, getting him into a super low interest rate. So we're preparing him for the rental market, right? Renting his house out. Meanwhile, we're preparing him for his purchase. So you have to know your short-term and long-term goals because that could dictate whether you pay points, don't pay points, and what makes sense to you on a short-term, long-term basis. So that is going to be number one. Why people typically refinance is it's just more about interest rate. They want a lower monthly payment. But did you know, though, that a lot of people don't know this, that you don't have to make the monthly payment. If you refinance today and use today's lower interest rate and make your same payment, and we're going to show you an example of that here shortly, you can actually get your loan paid off much, much faster than you're currently on track to do. That is how people leverage lower interest rates and start creating wealth through paying off their debt. Another way is you're going to remove, here, let's make this a little bit bigger for you. We're going to remove mortgage insurance, or some people want cash out options. So right now, as rates are starting to go down, people are needing to pay off debt. They're going to need to maybe replace a fence or roof. And it's not always a clear case of one of the biggest fit challenges maybe you face is that you have this 3% rate that you just are dying to hold on to. But on top of that, you have all this 20% interest rate that you're accumulating to keep it. At a certain point, and the numbers will always tell you, it makes sense to refinance in today's rates, get everything locked into a single payment, and get all your debt paid off, not just focus on one of those debts. So understanding your target rate, I jumped the gun. So this is going to be a quick one. We've already talked about how to look at what your target rate is. That target rate is going to be the interest rate that if you missed in this declining interest rate environment, you were going to regret. Look, people, don't get greedy. Be smart. Take the emotions out of it. Let's look at factual things here, and let's put a loan together that's going to help you accomplish your goals. And then here's the thing. If we refinance you today and rates continue to drop, next time we refinance you, we're going to pay your appraisal and your lending fees, which, by the way, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit as well. That's something people are very confused on. So a couple of things here. People look at one of the oldest tests out there. It's called the breakeven test. It's a simple breakeven test, and there's some truth to it, but it's not clear cut. So what it is, it's essentially you take your closing costs divided by your monthly savings. That comes up with a number, and as long as you hold the loan longer than that, then it makes sense to refinance. But that's not always the case, because even though you may have recouped your closing costs, your balance on your new mortgage is going to be higher than what it would have been. So if you were planning on selling, I don't know if that would have been the greatest test at all. So here, this walks you through a little example here. It's really simple. Let's say your loan costs $6,000, you save $250 per month. That's going to be a 2-year period of a recapture period. So according to this simple test, if you hold this loan for longer than 2 years, you win, which there is some truth to that, but that's not my test. Here is my test. It's called the true, it's not like Paul's test. It's the true break-even test. And what this does, this assumes that you say to me, Paul, I don't want to refinance because the fees are too high, or I don't want to increase my balance to cover the closing costs and the taxes and insurance and stuff like that. And I go, well, okay, so let me ask you your short-term and long-term goals. So assuming that we've established that, and you're thinking of moving in 5 years. Well, what we do is, and again, there's going to be a presentation on this, is let's see what would happen if you did refinance, you increased your balance to cover all your closing costs so nothing is out of pocket. But since you're not going to refinance, you're going to make, and you're going to make that same payment against your existing loan. What if we took that against your new lower interest rate? And then let's see what happens. You'd be surprised at how fast you'll pay off your balance and even surpass where you currently should be by not refinancing. So when you do sell, how much more equity you're going to have in your pocket. It's huge. Just wait. You're going to be blown away. I promise you, it's life-changing. All right, maybe not life-changing, but it's incredible. Now, let's talk a little bit about costs. I know I'm going a little fast here. Always feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. What I see people struggling with the most is which lenders actually, which has the lowest rate and the lowest cost. Here's the truth. If you take a look at this, this is a fake loan estimate, and I couldn't get rid of the green, so just ignore the green. But if you take a look at box A, that's the top left. That box is the only box that lender fees are at. So it's going to have their underwriting, it's going to have their processing fees, it's going to have any discount points. All the other fees that you see there is going to be the same at the very end of the transaction, regardless of which lender you use. It's going to have the appraisal fee. It's going to have the title fees, which are all third-party fees. So the trick is what happens is people try to shop based off closing costs, but lenders are using different insurances, or using lower property taxes, or maybe they're using a title company fees that's based in Idaho and it's not realistic for out here. Here's the deal: at the end of the day, so it looks lower, so you choose to go with them, but at the end of the day, all fees are going to come out to about the same. I mean, just what it is. So box A is where you want to focus your search if you're very cautious, which you should be, on fees. Lender fees, which we already went over it. God, I'm jumping ahead of these things, aren't I? You have your application fee, underwriting fee, processing fee, and discount point. What's a discount point? A discount point is a fee that you pay up front to get a lower interest rate. I got to tell you, we're starting to see more people do that, simply because where rates are predicted to be in next year in 2026 is at about 6%. My source on that is Fannie and Freddie Mac. If you can get a lower interest rate than that today by paying a point, maybe it's worth it. You'd be surprised. But again, it goes back to your short-term, long-term goals. Third-party fees are going to be boxes B through H on the loan estimate. They're going to be anywhere from $3,000 to $4,500. Appraisal fee, credit report fee, title and appraisal, recording fees, all that stuff. At the end of the day, whatever title company you use, those fees are going to be there. Your taxes, insurance, all that great stuff. And the last piece is going to be prepaids here, which of course, that includes your taxes and insurance. If you don't have taxes and insurance including your payment, you can expect this to be a lot less. It's just going to be your interest, maybe a little bit of homeowner's insurance, and that's about it. So there you have it on the fees. What do we got next, Paul? Oh, I don't know. Let's see what we've got. Oh, this is something I'm really excited to be sharing this with you. I hope it's here on the screen. The most common question I get as it relates to property taxes, and this is something lenders do when they quote you or give you a loan estimate up front about cash close. If you say to them, hey, what are your closing costs? They're going to say about $4,000. Give or take, whatever it is. Or they'll say $1,000 because that's what their fees are, but they don't tell you about the other fees. But if you want your payment to include taxes and insurance, there's a formula, and it's right here. I always get confused. It's right there. So per California, it's, all lenders are going to collect the same amount when you close, and it's going to depend on which month you close. So let's see if I can blow this up for you a little bit. So like, for example, if you close in January and your first payment is in March, they're going to collect 6 months of taxes. If it's in February, they're going to collect 7. So that little dot there is you're paying your second installment, which is going to be 6. And then they're going to add another one for a total of 7. So it's a total formula. Take the guesswork out of it. There it is. Now, wasn't that just totally exciting? And by the way, I have this incredible YouTube channel that, if that still doesn't make sense, I've done a few videos on that will really break down why we collect so much, and then why we collect so much. There it is. Okay, let's get to type of refinancing. So this gets a little something you need to know. There's FHA loans, there's VA loans, there's conforming, high balance, and jumbo loans. So one of the things I get is I got a call from the other day going, hey, wow, right? Someone's offering, my friend got a 5.5% on a refinance. Paul, what could you get me? I was like, 5.5%. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like an FHA loan. And I got to tell you, even if your loan to value, right? So they owe less than 80%. So they're not required to have mortgage insurance. But if they go FHA, guess what? Doesn't matter. You're going to have mortgage insurance. So it's not all about rate, but you need to know that certain loans, FHA loans, are going to give you probably the lowest rates out there, but you have your upfront mortgage insurance and you have your monthly mortgage insurance that you're going to pay regardless of loan to value. VA loans are amazing right now. If you're lucky enough to have a VA loan, you have what's called an IRRRL refinance. There's very little documentation. It's super easy. Finally, the government did something amazing for veterans, and that is the VA IRRRL. Conforming loans, that's your typical rate and term cash out refinance. Same with And same with jumbo. Now, I don't know if I can't remember if I'm going to get to this, but it's really important to understand interest rates. So I did break conforming loan. I do get to it. If I don't, I promise I'll bring it to you. Let's see if that next slide's it. Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. Next two slides are this. So when you start looking online for interest rates, which is a very smart thing to do, you really need to understand how interest rates work and how they're advertising. For example, when you start talking about conforming loans or conventional loans, this is your matrix to get the best interest rate. Number one, you have to have a high credit score. So the lower the credit score, the higher the interest rate. On a purchase, the more down payment you put, the better interest rate. The less down payment, that's going to put an upward pressure on your interest rate. If your loan amount is above 806 versus below it, that's going to be a huge difference in your interest rate. So I went over credit score, loan to value, and down payment. So we went over all that. What they do is, let me see if I can type and talk real quick. What they'll do is they will, let's go to Quicken. Let's see if Quicken rates. Is it still Quicken today? What they'll do is they'll give you a, I always promise myself not to divert like this, but let me see if I can do this real quick. Give me 1 second here. So what they do is they'll give you a rate, but then all of a sudden, if you look at the fine print, it's going to come with points. Yeah, okay, great. Here we go. So let's take a look here. So a 30-year, so let's go to refinance here real quick. So 30-year 6.125 interest rate, that's really good. Paul, how come you're only offering a 6.25 or 6.375? Well, let's take a look here. There's a little asterisk. Let's scroll down, right? So it says 30-year, an interest rate of 6.125 is a cost of 1.75 points. So let me give you an idea. If you have a loan amount of, let's say, 500,000, and you were to charge 1.75 in cost, that's an additional $8,750 on top of what they're already charging you. So the key is you have to look at the fine details on what it looks like. Is it a purchase or refinance? How many points are they charging? Look, I know we talked about points today already, and I said in some areas I do, but paying over almost 2 points to get a 6.125 is berserk. So always make sure you talk to someone qualified to really help you with your planning before you fall into the trap of overpaying for a loan. That sounds really good. It's crazy how many people out there, they'll be talking to someone and be like, yeah, it's just a point. And they go, oh, it's just a point, no big deal. But then you see that point on paper, it is a lot of money. It's taken away from your equity and your net worth. And that's something that you should be definitely on the look for. I think we crushed that one, right? I hope that helps. Hey, Rocket's a great place. I didn't mean to pick on them, but that's where I bring people all the time to shop rates because there they are. Let's talk about this no cost refinance myth. This right here is one of those things that I just kind of go, man, of all the things we're regulated on, we should be really regulated on what we say to people. So let me give you an example. So there's a major lender out there that is saying, hey, we'll refinance you for free. Okay. So they do 100, I don't know, let's say 10,000 loans a month, and they're being paid for it. And then eventually all these 10,000 clients are going to come and they're going to refinance them for free. I don't know if it works that way. So what do they mean by free? So it could be a couple things. Number one, maybe it's a lender fee they're going to not charge. Like for us, we don't charge our processing fee and we pay the lender fee. But title fees, they come up to the majority of the cost, and those aren't being paid. Are those being paid? Another way that people pay them is through increase in interest rate. So let's say, for example, the base rate today is like 6.375, but no cost loan is going to be 6.5%. Hey, that may make sense, right? Paying that high rate, but it's going to depend on your short-term and long-term goals. If this is your last loan and you're hoping to keep it for 15, 20, 30 years, that 0.25% will certainly add up. And you may want to look at the numbers to determine maybe adding 4,000 or whatever the title fees are to my loan makes sense. My point is, please don't fall under this trap of day 3 rate, marry the house, free refinance. We have to peel that back and really look at what is really going on with that. I can tell that kind of bugs me too. All right, here we go. Let's keep it moving. Keep it rolling. So, all right. So we've covered a lot of stuff here. I just want to start rehashing some stuff here, right? When you're going into a refinance, instead of shopping for rate right at first, we really need to narrow down short-term, long-term goals. Are you going to sell the property soon? If you're not going to sell the property, what is it going to look like in 10 years? If you're going to keep it for 10 years, well, when does the roof need to be replaced? Is that something that you should probably consider today or maybe tomorrow? Like, when are all these things going to be taken care of, especially if you're going to hold it long-term? Are you thinking of buying another property? Maybe now is the time to pull some cash out for a down payment. You should really focus on what your family's short-term and long-term goals are before you enter the conversation of a refinance. Because honestly, outside of, the rate itself is going to be secondary once you understand how to get the right loan for you to cover everything else. For example, if you don't have a trust right now, trusts are about $2,000 to $3,000 depending on what your situation looks like. If you don't have a trust, guess what? Somebody does. It's called California, and you may not agree with everything that they are going to do with your assets and your property. Life insurance. If you don't have life insurance, these are things that you should be looking at as a family to determine, is that during this refinance, are we going to take care of that now, or what are we going to do? So again, what we do here is we do a free mortgage review. And here's the deal. We're not going to pull credit. We're not going to do any of that. We're going to create something. Remember, I told you that we're going to look at a real mortgage review. We're going to create something like this for you. And by the way, you're going to have a video of me walking you through it. You don't have to take an application. It's free. It's an awesome, awesome tool. So let me walk you through this one person's refinance. All right. So they bought a house recently, and it's about 1.5 million. They owe $1,180,000 on it, and their rate is a 6.625. A lot of people right there would be like, well, the rates, remember we talked about rates? Well, in order to get this rate, they're going to have to pay almost a point, which is really going to put a lot of upward pressure. Let me show you. So to get today at 5.95, they're going to have to pay about $11,000 to get that rate. So what's your thoughts right there? Is it worth it? So this person's goal is to sell the house in 5 years. So I said, hey, I know this is a lot of fees, which it is, but let's fast forward to 5 years. And what's going to be the most important thing to you? The most important thing to them was when they sell their house to get as much cash as they can out of it to put down on their next one. All right, great. Let's take a look here. So what we do is we go savings over 60 months. We pull this up here. Well, if you didn't refinance and you didn't pay those fees, in 5 years, you would have a balance of $1,097,000. But if you took my advice, you increased your loan amount to cover all of your closing costs, but made your same payment against your new mortgage, you would have a balance of $1,077,000. That is $20,000 more equity that they're going to get from selling their house. That's what the numbers say. So, we can't let emotions drive this. Wow, $11,000, $15,000 in closing costs, that's too much for me. Like, there's no way that makes sense. However, when you let the numbers, when you work through the numbers, oh yeah. I don't know about you, but when I sold my house in 5 years, I'd rather get $20,000 more. And by the way, this is something that they're going to get with nothing out of their pocket. That's how you leverage today's interest rates to really maximize their long-term goals. So never underestimate that. So there it is, my friends. Stop guessing. Let's run your numbers. Let's take the guesswork out of this. I'd be happy to create that same mortgage review for you. All I need from you is a current mortgage statement so I know your balance, your interest rate, your payment. and then what your credit score is. By the way, lenders, to get you an interest rate, do not need you to take a full application. They need your credit card, your credit card, your credit score, your balance, and what your house is worth. Now, here's the thing. If you tell me your credit score is 800 and 600, guess what's going to change? That's right, your numbers. So we all play a part in this, but let's not invest the time until we know it makes sense for you, and then we'll start that process down. So go ahead, send me your email, just send me a message. You guys know how to get a hold of me. Would love to connect with you. And I think that's my last slide, and I think that is a wrap tonight. Hope you have a wonderful night. Would love to hear from you. Take advantage of these markets. Always take advantage of my free proposal here, mortgage review. It's always better to know than to wonder. Let's take the guesswork. Mortgage statement, your credit